run a fair and balanced event, a small committee with equal numbers of registered Democrat and Republicans reviewed, consolidated, and prioritized the 40-some questions that were submitted. We will try to get to as many as we can by 3:30, but if you do not feel your question was answered, then certainly take it upon yourself to directly try to contact our candidates who are with us this afternoon. So without further ado, let's get our question and answer segment started. I feel a little like Alex Trebek here, but we had a coin toss, and the Republicans will go first. Barbara, we will start with you, and here's the very first question. Does anyone else have any questions before we start? Are we all good? Okay, question number 1. And again, you have 90 seconds. What grade would you give Morristown Township on their efforts to be transparent? And what ideas do you have regarding transparent governance in our community? Barbara.
Actually, how I would grade it would be on actual transparency versus efforts to be transparent. As far as actual, I would give it a C, but as far as effort to be transparent, I would give it a D. Our team has put together a 5-point plan to get an A grade for transparency. One of the major things is open bidding. Open bidding benefits everybody. It gives you a fair deal for your tax dollars. That's one of the things that we're pushing forward. We're also looking for regular listening sessions. My team and I, we've been out knocking on doors and talking to people all over Morristown. And we're finding out that a lot of people really aren't aware of so many things that are going on in our town, and it really impacts them. So I think we really need to move in a better direction of my solution would be more face-to-face contacts with the residents and with the businesses as well, because everyone is affected. The council in general should be more accessible and more so you get better feedback, and you can make better plans and get better results. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Okay, the first Democrat to answer our question number 1 about transparency, Sue Monroe. Sue, you have 90 seconds.
Hi everyone, I'm the one desperately trying to keep my glasses from fogging up. Transparency, of course, Morristown abides by the New Jersey Sunshine Laws, which ensure that this decision-making in government is done publicly with some exceptions. But transparency is really about accountability. It's about communicating with residents so they know what their government is doing. So I give Morristown an A in transparency. We already have open bidding process for town contracts and professional hires. Council meetings are live streamed, and those meetings are also saved on the website in recordings for anybody who's interested to see. There have been various listening sessions over time. That's exactly where I actually met the mayor and deputy mayor last year, one of those sessions. And the current mayor has been streaming live on Facebook and giving some really great information and resources to residents. So if I had to improve, I would say that I would consider live streaming some other committee meetings and saving those to continue those listening sessions. And personally, I would love to have regular hours for residents. And we definitely could improve communication by improving our website. We need to make it simply a lot easier for everybody to find what they're looking for on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. All right. Next, Doug Mowdy. Doug, you have 90 seconds.
Hi, thank you, Rick. So I think I would look at a pass-fail grading system, and I would judge it based on the campaign promises of Donnelly and Gillespie. To quote Donnelly, he was running on a platform of transparency, 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 and therefore I would give them an F, a failure. Just because a closed session under the Sunshine Law might be legal doesn't mean that it's always okay or that it's always right, and it doesn't mean that 70% of town council meetings since 2019 need a closed meeting aspect. When I'm knocking doors, I'm hearing that town members are not familiar with what's going on. And I understand that there are postings to the website, but have you ever tried to find them? I challenge anyone listening today to go to our website and to try to find the town council meetings from February 2020. You're not going to. They're not there and they're not available. Try to find the audio. It's not there. At those meetings, I challenge the current town council on transparency, but yet those meetings where I challenge them on transparency are not there. Morristown deserves better. We deserve open bidding processes, which we do not have. We deserve a website portal that's user-friendly, where individuals don't have to cumbersomely log on and create their own account, but can just say, hey, I have a problem here. We need listening sessions at times that people can attend them. Morristown gets a failing grade currently, and we ask that you vote for Maudi, Omar, and Bobadilla for a fresh start for transparency. Thank you.
All right, Doug, thank you. David Zipper, you have 90 seconds.
I would give Morristown an A- based mostly on improvement. The last 2 years have been a refreshing shift towards conscientious transparency. Look, transparency is about making sure that the stakeholders, the residents and the businesses in town can be good, educated consumers of their government services. There have been a number of innovations that the current Democratic majority have put into place over the past few years, many of which the Republicans have tried to claim as their own. I think they've done a great job of narrowing the gap between residents and government, making it easier for anybody who's interested to access information. They saw proposals for professional services contract, which the three of us have pledged to continue. We will award contracts based on merit and value and staff input, which was a change as well, never based on favoritism or campaign support. They've live streamed all the budget discussions, which was very open, very informative. The mayor's listening sessions. These are just some examples of what I mean by a shift. And please don't be fooled by our opponents' scare tactics when they discuss things like closed sessions, which are a necessary function of any governing deliberative body. The 70% that was mentioned relates back to affordable housing, which was tied up in litigation. You certainly wouldn't want your opponents in a litigation having public access to your strategies. And the Sunshine Law is very clear on this. There are 10 enumerated reasons. There's no question that closed sessions are a necessary function. Mr. Maddie brings that up, but as an attorney and as the former chair of the planning board, he's well aware of this, and he's taken the planning board into closed session as well. The tactic of gaslighting is exactly the kind of problem that sows division in this town. So therefore, I think there's room for improvement, and Sue, Jake, and I hope to bring even greater transparency to Morristown. Thank you.
All right, thank you, David Zippin. All right. Next, Republican Vic Bobadilla. Vic, you'll have 90 seconds to discuss this issue of transparency.
As far as transparency is concerned, I graded a C as of right now. I believe that people need a better way of communicating with our town, with our townspeople, with the council, to voice their opinion, to be heard. It's one thing to listen, but it's another thing for us to hear them, for them to voice their opinion, and for us to respond to them. A lot of things were covered already, but one thing I like to do as well too is point people on merit, not party lines. And, point people at best man or best one for the job, not because they're a Democrat or Republican or whoever's in power at that time. And for everything else, for the most part, it's just you just got to be open with our public and with the people in the town. And website is the easiest one that people know how to use.
All right, thank you, Vic.
I'm gonna need time to
Okay.
run out.
All right. So, our last candidate, and Jake, just give us a few seconds to recalibrate our time, but Jake Van Dyken will be the last person to answer this question on transparency. Once again, the question is, what grade would you give Morristown Township on their efforts to be transparent? What ideas do you have regarding transparent governance in our community? In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jake, Happy New Year. You got the question.
Okay, so a lot of stuff's been covered. I echo my team's reasons that the current council has made considerable strides toward improving transparency here in Moorestown. We will continue to do that as a team. I'd give the current council an A for improvement with room to grow. More often than not, I think a lack of transparency stems from politicians trying to shield themselves from public criticism. It's not possible for every decision made on council to be popular. It's just not. In fact, unpopular decisions need to be made time to time for the public's welfare. But we as elected officials cannot and should never hide from public view when making them. If elected, you will get a straight shooter in me and my team. I believe that the people we serve deserve the truth, whether they like the policy decision or not. You cannot earn the trust of your constituents without being forthright about how decisions were made. While there are obviously times when debate must be handled outside of the public realm to protect the best interests of the town, even these situations must be explained to the taxpaying public. They have a right to know. Look, the people in this town are smart, extremely involved, and invested in the decisions that affect their lives, their children, and their property. So you have my word that I will always listen to you, will always make decisions with your best interests in mind, and I pledge as always to be open, honest, in how council makes those decisions. So I thank you.
Thank you, Jake.
Yep.
All right, and that is our first question. Now, do we want to take some time to do a rebuttal or clarification?
No, we're doing that
Or
after,
we want-
we're doing 3 questions and then a
We'll
chance
do
for
that after the
rebuttal.
third question.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's move on to question number 2. As I walk back into camera again, here I am. Question number 2 for our candidates. What is your assessment of Morristown's current fiscal health, and what steps will you take to maintain or improve it? Also, I want to acknowledge we do have some audience members who are sitting outside. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. And fortunately, the weather wasn't holding up. Everybody said it was going to be nice, but what the heck. So once again, what is your assessment of Morristown's current fiscal health, and what steps will you take to maintain or improve it? And this time, the Democrats will start off, and Sue, you have 90 seconds to answer this second question.
All right, hello everyone. Currently, I think our fiscal health is good, but we need to look ahead to make sure we are on a sustainable path to continue good health. We have a good bond rating, a good tax base, and a manageable debt. But fiscal health is more than the sum of our taxes, our expenses, and our surpluses. We must have a plan to manage our assets. Historically, we've not invested enough in maintaining critical infrastructure, and waiting for it to fail is just not a plan. It makes it more expensive, and it is just a lot less work than the not so glamorous job of investing in upkeep. So we have great challenges like all towns, and we can't rely on residential tax base to continue the high quality of life that Morristown affords. We must attract high quality businesses. The more commercial rateables, the less the residents have to bear the tax burden levied. So we need smart development. We have the unfortunate reputation of being a difficult and expensive town to do business in. We need to understand precisely what the barriers are and just get them out of the way. So first, our health is good. We need to be vigilant to keep it that way. We need to be investing in infrastructure maintenance so we don't have any enormous bills in the future. We need to be a more hospitable place to do business so the burden doesn't fall solely on residents. Dave, Jake, and I have the vision to do just that.
All right, Sue, thank you, Sue Lamorella. All right, the next candidate to answer this question of Morristown's fiscal health, Doug Mouty. Doug?
Thank you. I'm right here. So I would say that the outlook is not so good. We need to give tax relief, and we need to stop increasing fees and rates on like the sewer rate, the water rate, the fire inspection fee, the recreation fee. We've spent $50 million on our water treatment plants, and we've incurred $20 million of that in debt bonding. Our AAA rating pre-COVID had an asterisk next to it, that the only reason we have that rating is because of our manager, Tom Rochelle. If not for Tom Rochelle, our rating would be lower. We can't borrow money from our surplus forever. We need to explore new revenue streams. We need to hold meetings with citizens and get citizen input on what they want for locations like the mall, Kmart, and Retro Fitness. We need to apply for grant programs. We need to identify grant programs. We need to explore joint purchase agreements with the Board of Education in Burlington County and see if there could be a savings there. I agree that Moorestown is a difficult place to do business, and we need to change that reputation. We need to make it easier for individuals to come in. I just talked to someone today who's trying to open a local business downtown, who told me all about the red tape and delays that he's experiencing. That's really unfortunate, needs to change. It's time for a fresh start.
All right, Doug Mouty, thank you. Next answer to question, Democrat David Zippin. David?
I believe fiscal health in Morristown is good, but I believe that there's definitely room for improvement. We have a healthy surplus, the town meets its fiscal obligations, we have a strong bond rating. If you've ever tried to buy a house, you know how important a good credit score is. But historically, there's been just way too much reliance on dipping into the surplus and deferring secondary obligations, deferred maintenance, anything that can be just sort of out of sight, out of mind, and kicked down the road. It's unrealistic to expect that costs will remain flat. We need to move towards a more responsible and sustainable budget. We need to have a better handle on our assets. We expect the town to run lean, but we also demand a high caliber of services that matches the caliber of our town. And look, we face some challenges that the economy has cratered as a result of COVID. I mean, that certainly hasn't made things any easier. We've seen a drop in revenues. We had to push back second quarter taxes. But we will do everything that's practical to protect our tax dollars. We're going to see creative ways to grow our ratables and to expand businesses and to lessen some of the burden on our residential taxpayers. Look, I think the best barometer of Morristown's fiscal health is our comparatively high property values in town. And that's a constant that predates any of the recent trends from the urban exodus. There's an opportunity to make sure the town's value is as high as it can be, and we work to ensure that we not only keep a strong fiscal plan, but work to make it stronger and find more creative ways to ease businesses coming into town and to grow our ratables. Thank you.
Thank you, David Zippin. Next, Vic Bobadilla, Republican. Vic, you have 90 seconds to answer the question on Morristown's fiscal health.
Yes, thank you, Rick. We need to have a fresh look on current spending. The other day I had a cocktail with the mayor of Medford, and they have more people than us, they raise less taxes, and he still has a surplus every year. So we definitely could look at our spending and see how we can trim it, how we can grow small business, collect more tax dollars from businesses, make it easier for them to start up business, rezone some areas so we can bring in new diverse type of businesses as well. Just make it easier overall without all the headaches. Today I went to Morristown and sat with the cupcake guy who's been through months trying to open. He's now doing cupcakes out of his truck. And the pie lady, she expanded to her new store, and she's like, it was a little hell at first, but thank God I've been here for so many years and made it a little bit easier. But imagine a newcomer, doesn't know anybody, is trying to open a small business. So those are some of the things that we need to do to make it easier. It's not impossible. We just got to fine tune it, that's all.
All right, thank you, Vic Bobadilla. All right, our final Democrat to answer this question, Jake Van Dyken. Jake, it's your turn, 90 seconds.
No, not yet.
All right, okay,
Sorry.
give us about 15 seconds, and eventually, hopefully, in the Morristown budget, we can be able to get Mark Morgan a stopwatch next time we debate. But Jake, you 3, 2, 1, you got it.
Okay, so the fiscal health of the town is good at the moment, but that doesn't mean it always will be. One of the things that our campaign is committed to is taking the financial burden off of the taxpayers by increasing our ratables. And that means making Morristown a more hospitable place to do business. Given the COVID climate and its effect on small businesses, it's more important than ever for our township to support them. There are important steps that I think council can take to help existing businesses and encourage new ones. First and foremost, we must continue the current council's work towards opening the lines of communication between council and businesses to better understand the struggles they face and to enact changes that allow them to operate more efficiently. If elected, I will support the creation of a business liaison, working with the business community and township staff. This individual will be tasked as a contact point for businesses and will work with council to resolve problems that our valued business owners face. In addition, we need to better provide up-to-date information that is readily accessible by business operators through the township's website. This is something that has been expressed by many business owners to me in town. In addition, there's room for improvement in terms of making it easier to do business in this town, including streamlining the process for approvals to operate a business. I know there have been discussions about having a package store and possibly a brewery operate within the vicinity of Main Street, and I think this should be explored and supported in addition to other novel business ideas that would further diversify our business community. Council has the ability to create new local laws, and that can help new and existing business owners operate more successfully and with less interference. And we would work diligently to accomplish these goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake Van Dyken. And our final candidate to answer this question on Morristown's fiscal health, Republican Barbara O'Murt. Barbara, you have 90 seconds.
There's two ways to look at the current fiscal health. There's current physical health, and there's physical health minus outliers. What I mean is, current may look good, but when you take into consideration minus outlier, which is based on the sale of the liquor licenses where we have the surplus, my assessment is that the fiscal health is in need of improvement. It's the same as my running mates here. There's many ways to improve that. Better budgeting, smarter spending, going after the polluters, great idea. And something that I have noticed the same, we really do need to make it easier for businesses to operate in this town. There's just, it seems like they're always running into some kind of bureaucracy that holds them back. And we really do need these businesses. We're losing them in all parts of the town. You can see it on Main Street, you can see it on Route 38. It's something that we definitely have to attack, and we have to go after it soon.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Okay, now we move on to question number 3. And after this question, we will provide opportunities for rebuttal and for clarification on any of the other questions or answers that were given. Question number 3 is a simple one. What is your position on defunding the police? Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer this third question. This time we will begin with the Republicans, and Doug Mounty, you have 90 seconds to answer this question. Question number 3, your position on defunding the police.
Thank you, Rick. It is a simple question and there's a simple answer. It's a firm no. The safety and schools are the top reasons why people move to Morristown and make it so desirable. Long before the current movement, our police have been proactive with the NAACP and with community policing. We just saw them this morning at the superhero event at the Morristown Mall, taking pictures with my kids. They do a wonderful job with community policing. Chief Lieber was really supportive for me when I was on Sustainable Morristown in creating the safe exchange place where different individuals who have online purchases can go to the police station to exchange their goods rather than going and having a stranger come to their door, meeting them in a parking lot somewhere. Chief Lieber was really receptive to that. He was also really receptive to my idea to have a bicycle rodeo, teach kids bike safety this summer. But for COVID, we would have had that. And it was no questions asked. It was just a good idea, and the chief was behind it. In short, our police should be supported and applauded and not defunded. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Sue, Morel, just give us a few seconds to recalibrate our time. 15 seconds, but again, once again, what is your position on defunding the police? Democrat Sue Morella, 90 seconds.
My position is no. I'm not in favor of defunding our police. I do support the Attorney General's Excellence in Policing Initiative, which promotes professionalism and accountability and transparency. I also support the Attorney General's efforts to ban strangleholds and require de-escalation training. I'm in favor of Burlington County Chiefs Association and the Prosecutor's Office. They're going to begin some implicit bias training for all New Jersey police. These seem like great ideas to me. You know, my personal experience with the Morristown police has been very positive. We had a family member with dementia that sort of got away from us a few times, and the police were always there to help with that. But you know, recently we have an issue with someone in town who clearly has mental health issues. And she sits outside for hours at a time and talks to herself, and we're really concerned about that. And wouldn't it be great to have someone to call in social services? Right now, you know, we call the police, and that's all we can do. But I think there's room for healthy dialogue on issues that have different ways of dealing with community safety. And I know the Morristown Police is proud of the work they do for Morristown. And we appreciate them, and we are also very proud of the work they do for Morristown.
Thank you, Sue Morella. Barbara Omerge, Republican, you have 90 seconds to answer the question. Your position on defunding the police.
This issue is a very important issue, and we're seeing that it's a very important issue all over our country. My position is absolutely no. I look at it as, the police have a number one role, the police are a vital part of our community. They play a vital role in safety and security. And one of the most important things that government stands for is safety and security. When somebody looks at a town or a community to move to, one of the first things they ask the realtor and they look to is, how safe is the community? They want to see police numbers. They want to see what's going on. We have a very safe community here in Morristown, and just to give you an idea, we have approximately 34 full-time police officers. There's about 21,000 residents in Morristown, and on any given day, we have 40,000 people in the town. So you have to think about it, that there's 34 police officers that are responsible for all these people on any given day. So I am an absolute no to any kind of defunding of the police.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Bravo, Merv. Jake Van Dyke, Democrats. You have 90 seconds to answer this question. Jake.
Okay, so let me be clear, my team and I do not support defunding the Morristown Police. What we do support is responsible and accountable law enforcement practices. We are interested in continuing the good work of the current council majority and opening the lines of communications with the police to ensure township is aware of any criminal activity or issues within the town, and vice versa, residents' concerns with law enforcement. As an example, I heard from many residents that they would like to see more community policing and a more regular presence on Main Street, which I believe is a tangible goal. I also just want to comment on how important law enforcement is to our community, and our residents rely upon these officers when there are emergencies and help is needed. In no way would I want to somehow minimize that impact or diminish police resources so that they can do their jobs here in town.
Thank you, Jake Van Dyke. Okay. Our final two candidates to answer this question of police defunding, Vic Bobadilla. Vic, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you, Rick. After knocking on and talking to thousands of people in Moorestown, especially the last couple of weeks, I've yet to encounter one person to say that they were against it in any way. I'm 100% for not defunding the police. I have first-hand knowledge of stuff they go through, stories they go through. I have 3 brothers that are police officers. The things they do above and beyond duty for the residents in town. 9/11 happened, my brother hopped in the train, went to New York City. It was right in the middle of a mess. He volunteers his time for DARE projects. He volunteers his time. He sets, in New Brunswick, he sets up soccer camps for these kids with no pay. 2,200 kids went out for his soccer camp, free of charge. He donated his time, then he got some grant money. Other day on Facebook, I read a story. A mother's dog got attacked. The police officer stayed home with her kid as her husband got home. These guys do a lot of stuff that's not even told or you don't even see. So as far as defunding police, it's a total no, and I appreciate what they do for us, and there's always room for improvement. There's always room to do better, and I think in Morristown, these police officers do a great job, and I support them 100%.
Okay. Thank you, Vic Bobadilla. All right.
Did we skip Dave on that?
I think everybody answered.
No, I don't.
Oh, David, my fault.
That's okay.
You're right. So right here. David, Democrat David is the first, and I apologize. Your final answer on police, defunding the police in Morristown.
Morristown Police Department has my full-throated support, just as every other department of the township does. That said, I object to the frankly gross politicization of law enforcement and the mischaracterization of defunding as the term. The idea that anyone is proposing doing away with policing for health and safety and welfare of the citizens of Morristown is absolutely preposterous. Why is this question even being asked in Morristown? I listened to the budget sessions. I didn't hear any cuts that were even proposed by council. Is there some issue local to Morristown that suggests that police need a reaffirmation of resident support? The signs around town would suggest that there is, but honestly, I'm curious what has motivated that initiative. Anyone, ask anyone in the Morristown Police department, rank and file, leadership, I'm confident that they will report that they have the current Democratic majority's full support. However, I do believe there's an opportunity to alleviate some of the burden that the police department carries with purely social services matters, as my colleague Sue had mentioned. Our police officers should be freed up to devote their time and resources to protecting the community and keeping themselves safe in the process. Where there may be an opportunity for police to work in conjunction with county social services, I'd be all for exploring that further. If someone's health, safety, and welfare is not in jeopardy, if a person's property is not at risk, why do we need to further burden our police officers? Why do they have to be called just as a matter of habit? Make no mistake about it, this issue is about castigating the Black Lives Matter movement. And that's just an embarrassment. To unwittingly drag our proudly apolitical, nonpartisan police department in this fight makes me rather sad. But let me be clear and reaffirm my commitment, I do not support defunding the police department. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and again, I apologize for skipping you for that very important question. Now we are halfway through, and for our folks outside, how do you think that our candidates are doing so far? Something correct? Yeah? All right. At this point, we would like to give each candidate, if they choose. I'm sorry, you can't. You need to talk louder. We're doing the best we can with our masks on, but thank you. We'll try to talk as loud as we can. I want to give each candidate 60 seconds to rebut or to clarify a position or to maybe give their opinion on something that was already answered. Each candidate will have 60 seconds if they choose to. Let's just go by, just raise your hand and we'll just deal with this portion of the program. Anyone? Anyone want to clarify, rebut? David?
Yeah, a couple things that I'd like to mention. I know one of our opponents mentioned closed sessions and 70% of council meetings go into closed sessions. I think if you look, you'll find that in 2018, when there was a Republican majority, there were 76% of the meetings that went into closed session. So I would suggest that that's just a further indication of the fact that it's a frankly necessary component of any deliberative governing body. I haven't had the same opportunity necessarily to talk to all of the different residents because we are deliberately not knocking on doors. I think under the current pandemic situation, I just find that frankly inappropriate. I have no interest in touching somebody's doorknob, knocking their door, confronting them in that way. So we're trying to find other creative ways to reach out to the community. I know that I heard somebody mention fire inspection fees. The fire inspection fees were raised last year. There was 10 years where the fire inspection fees were not raised. And they conveniently waited until there was a Democratic majority because they knew they would get the traction that they needed to get those fees up. Tom Rochelle is not owned by the Republicans. His contract was renewed under the Democratic majority when the business manager left. He was actually given that role as well, so they fully support him as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. David Zippin. Any other rebuttals, clarifications on the first three questions?
Yeah, I would just like to respond to that about the closed session with Republicans and Democrats. I think the voters spoke pretty clearly in 2018 in Morristown when they were saying that transparency needed to happen. And I think to try to justify that before 2018 there were closed sessions somehow makes it okay from 2019 and 2020 to have closed door sessions is just ludicrous. Morristonians deserve better and should have better and deserve a fresh start. With response to the defunding the police, I think you heard three very simple answers here from Republicans, which were pretty firm no's. I also heard the word firm no's from my counterparts, my opponents, but I think if you listen to it a little more clearly and nuanced, it's a little bit of a no but, and I just don't think that's acceptable.
Thank you, Doug. Jay?
Yeah, just a brief comment. I mean, fresh start. I mean, we have been on Republican rule for decades, till 2 years ago. So the fresh start occurred in 2018 and continues till today.
Okay. Any other clarifications, rebuttal? Okay.
Just as far as the door knocking is concerned, it was always 6 feet in distance. We never touched a doorknob. We only left door hangers when they weren't home. And if we talked to them, we either left it on the step or on the door, and they looked at it later. So as far as we practice safety at all times. And if anybody had an issue, we just walk away. And the response was like 99% positive on it. Not very little problems with residents or even slamming doors on their faces or anything like that. That's it.
Okay. Barbara?
Just on the thought of transparency, with this knocking on doors and everything, what we're finding it's so much that people do not know what's going on. They really just don't. They have difficulty getting to the information. They don't know how to access the meeting. They don't, and I think that's where we need to do a better job of getting in touch, and us just knocking on the doors and approaching people in the, like Vic said, in a very safe manner. And we're very careful. Some people don't even open the door. We talk to them through the glass or whatever, and it's great. But I found that they really enjoyed us coming by and asking their opinions on things. It was really great getting in touch with what they want and where they're at in this community.
Thank you, Barbara. Any other rebuttals, clarifications, before we move on to question number 4?
I'd like to.
Yes, Sue.
Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, we agree. We've talked to hundreds and hundreds of residents over the months. We just did it on Zoom call. So we were also listening and talking. And I believe I started by saying, no, my position is no on defunding. I can't be more clear than that. But I'm not going to ignore what's going on in this country and with policing and not think that some of these other efforts are great ideas, because I believe they are.
Thank you, Sue. Anyone else? All right, let's move on to question number 4, which kind of stays on the police question. And again, the voters submitted these questions, and we thank you in advance. Here's question number 4, candidates. Currently, the demographics of our police force do not match those of the community it serves. Do you feel we should have a police force that mirrors the diversity in the community? And if so, how would you do that? The Democrats will start this question, and David, since I accidentally skipped over you last time, I'm going to let you go first. Diversity in the Morristown Police Department, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you, Brett. I think the premise of this question is problematic. Council has absolutely no role in the nuanced hiring decisions in making personnel of the police department. I think, unfortunately, the question really misses an opportunity to address a more pertinent issue that Morristown and, frankly, the rest of our country is facing, the issue of race relations. I've heard firsthand how minority residents of this community feel unwelcome and excluded. Look, I'm the diversity and discrimination officer in my day job. I deal with these issues all the time. I could talk about diversity training and inclusion training all day. It's part of what I do every day. I'm also an adjunct professor in a management program. I include these issues in my employment law curriculum classes as well as my ethics classes. And certainly I can't cover this in any meaningful way in a 90-second soundbite. So I would welcome the opportunity to sit down with my opponents, or anybody for that matter, and discuss diversity and inclusion further. I know that our township manager, whose name was evoked earlier, has worked hard to recruit with diversity in mind, but the township is a small employer, and frankly a very good place to work, doesn't have a lot of turnover. So there isn't a lot of opportunity to change the makeup and dynamics of the workforce. I think a better place to focus our attention would be on making sure that we provide diversity and inclusion training for staff and for the police department. I know Sue had mentioned earlier, I think the Attorney General's Excellent Policing Initiative is a great place to start with the police department, as well as de-escalation training. And I think we also have to make sure that Town Hall does a better job of projecting inclusion to all of its residents, businesses, and visitors. So I'd like to see more town-sponsored multicultural events. We had our first Juneteenth celebration. I'd love to see that continued. These are the kinds of things that I think council does have a say in, and they illustrate ways that council will have a real impact, not just lip service. So suffice it to say, I think the issues are far deeper than the makeup of the police department. Thank you.
Thank you, David Zippin. All right, next, Republican Vic Bobadilla, you have 90 seconds.
Yes, I totally agree that we should have a little bit more diverse police department, and I agree with David that it is a little tough. It's not in our hands. And I talked to Officer Wright today in Morristown. I said, how can we make it? I understand this is a tough call. How do we get more minorities out there to get involved and to want to be a police officer? It's tough in our town because over 90% of the kids that graduate go to a four-year college and go to other fields. So I said, well, maybe there's something we can do to get kids interested and show them the right direction if that's feasible. If this way they'll know what to do. They can go to the military, and then as soon as they get out of there, they're right up on the top of the chart. He said it's just tough. And he said the only option I thought about, like we do with soccer, is at a certain age we allow 1 or 2 kids from out of town to play on our travel soccer teams. So why don't we allow maybe 1 or 2 people from outside Morristown that are minorities or whatever to come to Morristown and apply to try and be a police officer and eventually move into town as possible, because it's hard because the cost of living in Morristown is a lot higher than most towns. So these are just an idea, but I agree with him. It's tough, but I'd like to see that, and also teachers as well.
Okay, thank you, Vic Barbadilla. Jake Van Dyken, you have 90 seconds.
We support diversity on the police force, much like we do in all township departments. Currently, the police force consists of 34 officers, 33 of which are white males, 1 person of color, and no women. So it would appear that diversity is warranted. However, I think this question is a misnomer, as council has no control over the day-to-day operations of the police force, and certainly none over their hiring practices. What my team can and would do is support the statewide initiative to diversify police forces by amending the rules surrounding hiring, which is primarily, if not solely, based upon the civil service exam. In terms of diversity, we also support inclusion and diversity training for not only council, but community members and township staff. We believe awareness is the key to make systemic changes in our current system. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Barbara Omerge, you now have 90 seconds to address this question.
I believe diversity is a good thing. It's good for businesses, it's good for schools, it's good for policing, it's good for the community. Morristown, it happens to be made up of 80% white and 15% not white residents. That would mean we're short 5 officers, non-white officers. As police retire, as positions become available, I think we should look at it. Progressively towards, a more diverse police officers. But the whole case of diversity on a police force, I think it's more important in a large city where you have thousands of officers and you're working in different diverse neighborhoods where you really need people that in those neighborhoods that identify with the neighborhoods. Morristown's a little bit of a different town because of its makeup, and because of its acreage here. It's the town limits, but absolutely, diversity always works. It's always a good thing.
Thank you, Barbara. Our final 2 candidates to address this question before we move on, Sue Monarella and then Doug Mouty. Sue, you have 90 seconds.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I became aware that in the past several months that there wasn't so much diversity on our police force. For example, as Jake said, there was no women on it. And I do believe it's healthy for the police department, any police department, to strive for more diversity and to more closely mirror their community. So, I've read up on these issues over the year, and especially now since I've been running for council, and really especially since the George Floyd incident and the Black Lives Movement, Matter movement here in town and throughout the country. However, we really don't have any authority over hiring practices within the police department. So we would focus on what we do have some authority over, and that's to make sure that we reach out to the community for our council, our board positions, and to make sure that we're really trying to represent our community in that way. We also are in favor of providing diversity and inclusion training for the township, like Dave mentioned. And I also hope to participate in the creation of a better together type of committee for inclusion and engagement in Morristown. These are things that we can address and things that we should address if elected.
Thank you, Sue Monarella, Democrat. And finally, Republican Doug Mouty, you have 90 seconds to address the question of diversification in Morristown Police.
Thank you. This is an important question, and I thank the Morristown residents who submitted all of their questions here because they felt they were important and needed to be answered. Minorities comprise roughly 15 to 20% of Morristown's population. A plug to fill out your census because we'll get new information on that in the coming year. Our police force should definitely mirror our diversity in town, but how we do that is a tricky question because Morristown loses state funding if we do not hire top candidates based upon the civil service test. So there's basically 3 things I can see that we could do to fix that. The civil service test is controlled by state legislatures, Democrat legislatures in the Assembly and Senate, and the governor could work to change that to give points to minorities, similar to how they give points to veterans in applying for their civil service test. We could consider scholarship and internship programs to encourage minority applicants to take the test. We could focus on, our Board of Education really focuses heavily on preparing students for, to be college bound. And that's not right for every student, and maybe we can identify students who might have an interest in public service to apply for the police force or to give them some support to go that route. One really important thing I want to mention is with minorities comprising 20% of Morristown's population but not being represented on the police force, they're also not represented on town council. And my running mate, Vic Bobadilla, is the only person sitting here amongst us who can fix that. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug Mallard. All right, moving on to question number 5. If elected to Morristown Council, what specific steps, besides working with the Morristown Business Association, the MBA, would you take to improve economic development and increase tax rateables? What specific steps would you take to improve economic development and increase tax rateables in Morristown? And to begin this first question, Republican Vic Bobadilla. You have 90 seconds, Vic.
Thanks, Rick. We kind of brushed this over a couple times in several different questions, but just to go over it one more time, I would say rezoning some of the property to change some of the zoning laws so you can bring different types of businesses in those locations. Back by church, those places, those commercial type properties, and the ones by the Coca-Cola plant. Another big section is like where the Kmart used to be, the mall. It's a little more red tape, but finding a way to get those things back on track and moving. And if the mall's not going to put in their effort, then we'll do the different things to make it more feasible for us to work there. As far as red tape is also, we brought this up already, small business, just make it easier for them to be successful in our town. I know the people in Morristown support the businesses, especially during COVID. Family people in Morristown, Facebook all sent out posts, support. They sent out their menus, and I know a lot of those merchants are still doing well today because of the town. We support those small businesses. So that's, if we can make it easier for them, I know the town will support them, and we could just be like some of those other towns in our neighboring. Thank you.
Thank you, Republican Vic Bobadilla. All right, next, Democrat David Zippin. David, you have 90 seconds to address the question of economic development in Morristown.
Thank you, Rick. Businesses are the backbone of a healthy township, and facilitating that growth is a priority for us. Unfortunately, the town's reputation, which has evolved over decades, says that we're not welcoming, and frankly, people are hesitant to come to Morristown to open their businesses. You can't go into that situation expecting to lose time when you're operating primarily on debt while you're trying to get yourself on your feet. So we need to make that process more attractive to draw more businesses in. I'd like to see somebody on township staff who's dedicated to taking greater responsibility to reaching out to businesses. The person could sort of serve as a liaison between staff and business owners and could make recommendations, provide much needed feedback to town council. I'd also like to see Morristown encourage the microbreweries, which were mentioned earlier, as well as the packaged good licenses. I think both have a unique opportunity to generate more foot traffic in our primary retail corridors, Main Street and Camden Avenue and Lenola. I'd like to see something on the books to help the town deal with the vacant properties in our commercial zones. I'd also like to see the job do, frankly, a better job of marketing its existing businesses to residents, to our neighbors and surrounding towns, as well as doing a better job of marketing the town to would-be business owners. This is all stuff that EDAC's working on with both updates to the website and the public relations push. And I think the community house is actually exploring the use of its basin space for the pool used to be for a microbrewery, which would be a great asset and would help sort of expand our commerce to the south side of Main Street. So successful, thriving businesses are crucial, and the three of us are absolutely committed to doing everything within our control to ease the process and to grow rateables. Thank you.
Thank you, Democrat David Zippin. Doug Mowdy, Republican Doug Mowdy, you have 90 seconds to address this question. And once again, economic development in Morristown.
Hi, thank you. So in 2018, the Economic Development Advisory Committee investigated microbreweries and made a map designating where exactly they could be placed to comply with the different 200-foot regulation from church and schools. Since that time, 3 Republicans have been kicked off of that committee while working on that endeavor, so it's been delayed. As chair of the planning board in 2019, I was able to help pass a master plan re-examination report, which proposed that the town consider and look into both breweries and wineries. And then I was, too, as a Republican, was kicked off of the planning board. Rezoning commercial districts is important to eliminate red tape and unnecessary costs and fees. It's simply too long and too slow of a process for individuals to try to open a business here. And for example, when somebody tries to open a brewery, it's going to take several months where they have to have on their application that they have a physical location present for about 8 months before they're awarded a license. So they have a carrying cost involved in it. So it's not necessarily a silver bullet to say that we're going to allow breweries for that reason, because there's a lot of overhead. And that, I think, is the problem, is that if you're not a business who's able to sustain a large amount of overhead because you're a startup, you're not supported here in Morristown, and that needs to change. We need to streamline the existing linear process for people to get their applications through the township, and we need to simplify the process while protecting its integrity, and that's why we should be elected to town council.
Thank you, Doug Mouty. Sue Mamarella, you have 90 seconds to address this issue.
Hi, everybody. This is a really big, hot issue, and of course that we want to listen and learn and address these obstacles. And you know, everybody here really has a big list from you know, more marketing for our town and Main Street as a destination. If we complete Percheron Park, that's a draw for people to come in to facilitate walkability, explore microbrewery. That's a very complicated subject, as you can see. And obviously we need to improve access to the website and really get business just easier to do in Morristown. But you know, all of that said, there's no lack of ideas in Morristown about what we should be doing. What we need to do is really make that investment and push all these really good ideas through. And I think that will be what we will really focus on to get the best practices in other towns, to get what everybody in town kind of knows, and to get that pushed through. And I think that Jake, Dake, and I are really eager to do that and get it done.
Thank you, Sue. Next is Barbara Omer. Barbara, you have 90 seconds to address this question.
This, for Morristown, is a very significant problem. We have some areas right now that it's not just a matter of opening up after COVID or whatever. This is like the Route 38 corridor. I mean, really, the mall has been failing for years. They can't get stores in there. I mean, and that right away is going to affect the residents. It affects the budget. It affects Morristown. I think the best thing to do is, especially for those businesses, and that's the Kmart shopping center as well, the mall, we really need to speak to the owners of these properties, these stagnant properties, and get together with them and come up with a plan. Things are changing. I've done some research myself, and there's malls around the country that are having the same problems. Well, maybe there is a solution because they're coming up with them. I looked into this one where that's a wonderful property. It's in a great location. There are, both of them are, you know, they're close to great highways and access routes. There is a way possibly to do a self-sustaining community right there. There's all kinds of businesses that could go into that location. It's just a matter of getting together and shooting these ideas with these people and just getting them to, if they want somebody else to buy them out or whatever, but we need to get these businesses up and running because they're just sitting there and there's no taxes coming in.
Thank you, Barbara Omer. Last but not least, to address this question before we move on to our sixth question, Jake Van Dyken. Jake, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. I think we need to first continue improvements with the businesses we do have in town in terms of making it easier to do business here. I believe the current success of the township's businesses would breed more success. So from there, I would support advertising and marketing efforts to let outside businesses know Morristown is open for business, and we are committed to making it easier to do business here. As I mentioned earlier, I think it's important to diversify businesses in town, such as supporting efforts for bringing a brewery and a package store here. And this would help engage more novel businesses, such as a wine tasting room or cigar shop like they have in Haddonfield. Again, I still think the focus should be on how to improve conditions for our current businesses, which spread across town, including Main and Mill Street, Church, Chester, and Centerton, Camden and Lenola, Route 38, Eastgate, and the mall. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Jake Van Dyken. We're ready to move on to question number 6. All right. And we're just about on time. So we're moving right along here. Question number 6. What are the goals of the Lenola Revitalization Project? Of course, it's the project to revitalize the Lenola Town Center and the Camden Avenue corridor. I think it's a $1.5 million project. What are the goals of the Lenola Revitalization Project? How will you, the candidates, continue to meet the goals and deadlines of this project? The Lenola Revitalization Project. To kick off this round of questions, Democrat Jake Van Dyken. Jake, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you, Rick. So the Lenola Shopping Center is a welcome center to the town. It's important this project is completed. As some of you may know, this project was stalled due to the provision of federal funding requiring a change in design firms, also together with safety and design issues. Through this federal funding, council has saved hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars. Presently, the project is in the final design process and on schedule. Our team is committed to seeing this project through the finish line.
Thank you, Jake. Next, Republican Vic Abadilla. You have 90 seconds to address this issue.
Thank you, Rick. The grant was obtained in 2017, and still nothing has happened since then. I know there's been some complications, but for the most part, everything was done, and then you guys went, the council went with another company and stuff. When knocking and talking to people in that community, they're kind of like really fed up. They feel like they're part of Morristown, but they get no respect and they get no funding, they get no help there. So they're tired of hearing that it's going to happen and nothing happening. So I mean, as a promise from us and the Republican Party here, that we're going to fight to make sure this gets done and it's finished and it's no more. It's not just sitting on the table with red tape. Also, this is an entrance to Morristown. You come from Maple Shade, you enter Morristown. This is a place where you see the sign, welcome to Morristown. We should rebuild that side. And the rent's cheaper there, and people go there. Like what Rita's Water Ice, before COVID, there was tons and tons of kids that go there. And after the games and sporting events, everybody goes there. So if the right shops are there and we clean it up, the people of Morristown and other people from other towns will go there. So we will save that area. And it's a beautiful space. There's tons of room there. It needs to be cleaned up, and I know we can do it. And I'll make it one of my points to get it done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Republican Vic Abadilla. Democrat David Zippy. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you, Rick. I think that there's a great opportunity for Lenola to serve as a gateway to town, and the revitalization project will be a springboard to bring that to fruition. I think it's an underutilized asset as it sits now. I also think there's a lot of misinformation swirling around this project. Look, this isn't a new deck that you're putting on the back of your house. There are approvals required from the state, from federal agencies as well. I think what's most important is that we do it right and maximize the impact that we can get out of this underutilized asset. The current majority discovered an opportunity to save the taxpayers well over $250,000 through a grant, and doing so required using a federally approved firm. The firm that came in, it was a good thing that they did, because the engineering firm, McCormick and Taylor, the current firm, found a fatal flaw from Taylor Design Group's engineering, and that was sure to set back things even further than they were. So it is moving forward. We're in the final design process, and I expect that a construction firm will break ground towards the end of next year. Beyond that, I think a minimum of a year to build out a project of that magnitude, of that scale, is reasonable. And look, decades of Republican majorities spent no money in Lenola, and our opponents now want you to pretend that you won't see more of the same after decades. They claim that everything should be completed in about 6 months, and that's just not realistic. It's not responsible. It's not being a good steward of township resources. Thank you.
Thank you, David Zippin. Republican Doug Mounty, you have 90 seconds to address this question, the Lenola Revitalization Project.
Thank you, Dave. To the people of Lenola listening at home, you just heard from our opponents that everything's on track. For those of you who have spent decades in a grassroots effort to try to revitalize Camden Avenue, I hope that you're listening and I hope that you'll vote. The problem with this question is that the town council has already blown the deadline, which was in 2019, to have bolts in the ground for you. We are not there. Look at Camden Avenue, you see it every day. We're not breaking ground until we're hearing now the end of 2021. This project is well overdue and well over budget, and frankly, that's just unacceptable. This project is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make Camden Avenue a business-friendly, bike-friendly, pedestrian-friendly gateway into our community. It needs the time and attention to be done right for the deserving and overly patient members of Lenola. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug Conley. Last but not least, Republican Sue Monroe. You have 90 seconds.
Except I'm a Democrat.
Last but not least, Democrat.
Well,
Sue Monroe. We'll edit that out. You have
All right.
90 seconds. Sue,
Thank
thank you.
Yes, the overriding goal of the Lenola project is to enhance the area both aesthetically, of course, and to improve its economic vitality. In other words, we want more people to come out and about, and we want more businesses to come and to get those rateables. So Dave, Jake, and I are really excited about that project with Lenola, and we are really proud of what the task force has been able to achieve. I also would like to speak to Lenola. I recognize that there has been frustration for many, many years. I believe that this has been a neglected area since probably before I even moved to Morristown. When I served on the appearance committee in 2006, we saw vision plans and everything there, and they were already old, back there. But now, in fact, I really think that I've seen the plans. Things are, out there and getting ready to get going. And I know that you've heard a lot about a recent delay in that project, but let me just, without going into the weeds, say that delay, that kind of do-over of the design plan, that delay saved Moorestown probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it resulted in a corrected plan, a more accurate plan, a safer plan, and a more workable design. So it was certainly worth the extra wait and for getting it right. So it's coming, and we'll get it done if we're elected.
Thank you, Democrat Sue Marella. Finally, Republican Barbara Mert, you have 90 seconds to address this issue.
This project absolutely needs to be completed, and it needs to be completed soon. That's actually my gateway into Morristown, and it is upsetting when you know that there is a plan in place and that it hasn't been finished. I've walking around that neighborhood, and this is a wonderful neighborhood. Lenola, some of those people go back generations just as well as the ones here in the center of town. It's part of Morristown. It's a great community. It's a very active and busy community, and we really need and we owe it to get this project completed in Lenola, especially since it's been sitting on the docket for so long.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, it is 3:21, and we're getting close to our time together. So at this time, I'd like to give the candidates some time to make closing comments, and this may include clarifying or rebutting anything that was said earlier. The candidates will have up to 2 minutes to help the audience understand why you're asking for their votes. This is the closing comments. We began on this end, so now we will start on this end and just move this way, and we'll begin with Vic, Republican, Vic Bobadilla. Vic, you have 2 minutes for your closing remarks.
Oh, closing? Okay. I wanted to thank everyone who came today, who was listening online. If elected, I will fight to lower taxes, make Morristown a more affordable place to live and to retire. And bring action to delayed projects such as the Lenola project. Furthermore, I will fight for the softball fields for the girls that don't have one. We would like a better dialogue between the businesses and citizens of Morristown. To save some tax dollars, we would like to pursue legal actions towards the polluters of the Morristown water supply, which Morristown has spent over $40 million on. Build our local economy by making it easier for small business to grow and start up, and rezone some of the areas to allow new businesses to come to Morristown. We would like to have open bidding process on all government contracts. This way, Morristown benefits by competitive bids. It's time to give Morristown a fresh start with transparency, open communications for our residents, diversity, and unity. We want to do what's best for the people in our town, regardless of their political stance. There are two amazing candidates running alongside me, Doug and Barb, that I personally know and will fight for this town above politics. We are running for town council because I want to give back to the town that gave endless opportunities for my family. Thank you.
Thank you, Republican Vic Bobadilla. Next, Doug Maltby. Doug, your closing comments, please.
Thank you. In closing, I know Moorestown to be a wonderful, welcoming, generous, and inclusive community. It's a place to aspire to live in and to raise a family, and that's certainly true for me growing up in Cinnaminson. But it also needs to be a place that people can afford to live, and it needs to be a place where people can afford to and want to do business, and where they feel welcome. When you and your family sit down at your kitchen table in October and you cast a vote for Omar Mowdy Bobadilla, you're voting for tax relief, you're voting for better transparency, you're voting for recourse against our water polluters, you're voting to give the Lenola streetscape some long overdue attention. If you have any questions after today, I encourage you to look us up on Facebook, you should look at us on Twitter, or you should send us an email at afreshstartformorristown@gmail.com. Let us know your questions. We're happy to meet with you and to answer them, whether it's questions on sustainability, affordable housing, or the rain tax. A vote for Omar Mowdy Bobadilla is voting for a fresh start. We need to be past the place where 96% of town appointments are for one political party. I believe there is no party affiliation to a good idea. Frankly, you are not bridging a partisan divide by electing our opponents. That would be a 5-0 Democrat monopoly on town government. So government works best when you have checks and balances, as I said at the beginning. We need a council that will be self-reflective and willing to listen and do better. Critical thinking is critical. What we heard from our opponents tonight is that Morristown is on the best track possible and nothing can change. It is as transparent as can be, and that's simply not the case. Morristown, I've met many of you, I've met thousands of you. You're an intelligent voting base, and I encourage you to vote for myself, Barbara, and Vic, and we hope to earn your vote and give Morristown the fresh start that it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Republican Doug Mowdy. And our final Republican this afternoon, Barbara, you'll have 2 minutes for your closing comments, please.
Our plan is a fresh start in Morristown, and Morristown needs a fresh start. Morristown is a great place to live. We want Morristown to be the best place in America, and the best place in America to live, just like it was in 2005. It was rated, and that's the town that we need to get back. Our plan with Vic and Doug and myself is for lower taxes, better transparency, the open bidding we talked about, Lenola Revitalization project, open spaces, acquiring the open spaces which make this town wonderful, and better communication. We can bring you that fresh start. We ask for your vote for myself, Barbara Omer, Doug Mowdy, and Vic Bobadilla. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to More Unity for sponsoring today, and also to the Perkins Center for hosting all of us. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Barbara Omer. All right. Our first Democrat to give his closing comments, Jake Van Dyken. Jake?
Thank you. So just want to start and thank you, Rick Williams, for emceeing this event.
Thank you.
The committee chairs and More Unity, of course. I mean, this is the definition of transparency. We're having an open public discourse. Of course, weather prohibited everyone from being here, but you're watching this virtually, like you probably have done for the last 6 months. So you got to hear from the candidates, each side. We agree on some issues, we disagree on others. I've heard a few things that just came up in closings from my Republican counterparts in terms of a lawsuit against the polluters. I've heard no plan about that, nothing about whether a statute of limitations in terms of the limitation of time you can bring a lawsuit has passed. But it's kind of a weak position to put that in the closing without some more discourse. So if you'd like to talk to me more about that, you can look, we go to our website at Morristown Together, and I can answer any questions you have on that. With that being said, my team's goals are to unify this town, not divide it. We're not about sending out flyers that divide the town, about things that did not occur. We've responded to the Republicans' flyers with the truth about transparency, what's been going on in the town. Look, the Democrats are 2 years into this. The Republicans have had control for decades. It is an A for what they've been doing. Their effort gets an A, this current council. You know, our goal is to preserve the unique character of the town, but at the same time, promote, support local businesses that can diversify this town. You know, the idea of a brewery or a package store, you know, seems far-fetched, but it's something that could and should happen. We are behind that. So look, our aim is to bring Morristown together. We've had enough divisiveness. All I can say is that you've heard from the candidates. It's your decision. No one should be able to convince you otherwise, or tell you what to do, I should say. And we hope that you vote for the blue. You vote for our team, Zippin, Mamarella, and Van Dyken. Thank you.
Thank you, Democrat Jake Van Dyken. Next, David Zippin. David, you have 2 minutes for your closing comments, please.
Thank you, Rick, very much for emceeing. I want to echo what everybody else has said and thank More Unity and Perkins for hosting. And thank you, everybody at home watching, folks behind us that are squeezing uncomfortably onto the deck, for taking time out of your Saturday afternoon to be good consumers of your democracy. I can tell you that Sue, Jake, and I are fortunate enough to be elected in November. As I said earlier, we promise to work hard for Morristown. We promise to listen more than we talk and ask more questions than we answer. And I had some remarks prepared, but I really don't want to let, there are certain things that I heard that I'm not comfortable letting go. I heard somebody mention how great Moorestown was in 2005, and that just conjures up ideas to me of making Morristown great again, which is something that I just don't have sitting very well. I heard somebody mention being kicked off of boards. I serve on the planning board. I am in the minority now, still on the planning board as a Democrat, and I've been on the planning board for 2 years. Prior to Democrats having control of town government, there was absolutely nothing close to balance on boards. They were generally, one or maybe 2 Democrats on a board that were just considered to be a token. I heard somebody mention, acreage and how hard it is for people to come into Morristown because it's an affluent community. But what I think that really fails to recognize when you're talking about diversity is women. As far as I'm concerned, the balance of residents are about 50-50. And seeing, absolutely no women on the police force as one example is a problematic issue, and something if you're talking about diversity, you can't really ignore. Talking about Lenola, I think that the 2019 time frame was completely unrealistic, and I find it really interesting that Mr. Mowdy keeps pushing that. Mr. Mowdy mentioned earlier that he worked on Boundary Creek Park as an employee of Taylor Design Group, and he did not recuse himself on planning board matters where they were awarded professional services contracts. So if we're talking about transparency, I don't know how you can ignore that either. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Democrat David Zippin. And our final Democratic candidate this afternoon, Sue, your closing comments. You have 2 minutes. Sue Mamarella.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks for monitoring. Thanks to Perkins Center, More Unity. Thanks to the public on that screen and the public behind me. I don't know if everybody can see. I kind of on purpose didn't write any closing comments. I just want to say you've heard everything. We stand for unity, we stand for transparency, and we stand for a really forward way in town. We know that to get things done, we just have to do it together and get past a lot of bipartisanship. I'm willing to do that. I've been in business a long time, and I'm goal-oriented, and I agree with my opponents that if it's a good idea, it's a good idea. Let's just get it done. So again, we hope that you vote for Jake and Dave and I, and I just want to remind you that we are really for unifying the town and making sure that we are transparent. You can look things up for yourself, and we're very, very business-minded, because we know that's one of the biggest issues we have. So thank you again for listening, and we hope to earn your vote.
Thank you, Democrat Sue Morello. How about a big hand for all of our candidates? As we wrap up, I'd like to thank all who volunteered to organize this event, and of course Perkins for hosting us. I appreciate the active engagement of our community members who send in thoughtful questions that give us a better idea where the candidates stand on issues that are important to us, the voters. In closing, I'd especially like to thank again the candidates for your willingness to serve our community and for having the courage to run for office. This wraps up the formal portion of our candidate forum. You'll have an opportunity, obviously, to talk with these candidates on your own if you so like. You can learn more or ask additional questions by going to their Facebook pages or websites, www.facebook.com/FreshStartMorristown for the Republican candidates, and for the Democratic candidates, MorristownTogether.com if you would like to chat or have some communications with them. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget, vote by mail, postmarked by November 3rd, or in person on Tuesday, November 3rd. Get out there and vote. Have a good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.